You are watching Man's Dark Nature, where true crime actually meets the truth. We cover unsolved murders, reopened cold cases, and those twisted domestic crimes that still haunt families today. No jump scares here or cheap sensationalism, just the dark, uncomfortable facts, backed by solid research and investigation. November 2, 2007. In Perugia, Italy. While police tape fluttered around a medieval cottage where a young woman lay murdered, 20-year-old Amanda Knox stood outside kissing her boyfriend. The cameras captured it all, that single, devastating moment that would transform an American exchange student into one of the most polarizing figures in modern criminal history. But here's what the cameras didn't capture: the truth about what really happened inside that house of horrors. What they did capture was something far more dangerous. A narrative that would nearly destroy an innocent woman and expose the terrifying power of media manipulation in the digital age. This isn't just the story of a murder. This is the story of how a young woman's life was shattered by a perfect storm of prosecutorial ambition, media sensationalism, and cultural prejudice that turned a victim into a villain and justice into a spectacle. By the time you finish this story, you'll understand why Amanda Knox's case isn't just about guilt or innocence. It's about how easily the truth can be buried when everyone profits from the lie. The question that haunts this case isn't just who killed Meredith Kercher. It's how did the wrong person become the face of evil? Amanda Knox arrived in Perugia with the same dreams as thousands of study-abroad students before her, to immerse herself in Italian culture, improve her language skills, and have the adventure of a lifetime. She was 20 years old, bright, athletic, and eager to experience everything Italy had to offer. She rented a cottage on the outskirts of the medieval city with 3 other women, British exchange student Meredith Kercher, and 2 Italian women, Filomena Mazzetti and Laura Mazzetti. By all accounts, Amanda and Meredith got along well despite their different personalities. Amanda was outgoing and spontaneous. Meredith was quieter, more reserved. Amanda had also begun dating Raffaele Solicito, a 23-year-old Italian computer science student she'd met just a week earlier. Young love in one of Italy's most romantic cities. It should have been the perfect beginning to her Italian adventure. Instead, it became the prologue to her nightmare. On the evening of November 1, 2007, Amanda spent the night at Raffaele's apartment. They watched a movie, smoked marijuana, and made dinner together. It was a typical night for 2 young people falling in love. Neither of them knew that while they were together, someone was breaking into their cottage. Someone was attacking Meredith Kercher. Someone was ending a life and beginning a chain of events that would consume Amanda Knox for the next 8 years. The next morning, November 2nd, Amanda returned to the cottage around 10:30 a.m. to shower and change clothes. What she found would haunt her forever. The front door was open. There was blood in the bathroom, droplets on the sink, smears on the faucet. Meredith's bedroom door was locked, which was unusual. Amanda called out but heard no response. Concerned, she returned to Raffaele's apartment and brought him back to the house. They called the Italian postal police, who arrived shortly after. When the police finally broke down Meredith's bedroom door, they discovered a scene of unimaginable horror. Meredith Kercher lay on the floor, covered by a duvet, her throat slashed. She had been sexually assaulted and stabbed. The 21-year-old from London, who had come to Italy to study European politics and Italian, was dead. While investigators processed the crime scene, Amanda and Raffaele waited outside with other friends who had arrived. And that's when the cameras captured the moment that would define public perception of Amanda Knox forever, her kissing and embracing Raffaele, seemingly carefree while her roommate's body lay inside. To the Italian media, this behavior was suspicious, callous, inexplicable. To Amanda, it was shock, confusion, and the human need for comfort in the face of trauma. But perception, as Amanda would learn, matters more than reality when you're fighting for your life. What happened next would become the cornerstone of Amanda Knox's defense and the source of endless controversy. On November 5, 3 days after the discovery of Meredith's body, Amanda was brought to the police station for questioning. What began as voluntary questioning became a nightmare that would last until the early hours of November 6. 4 hours, Italian investigators interrogated Amanda without a lawyer present. She later claimed they shouted at her, called her a liar, and pressured her to confess to involvement in Meredith's murder. Under this intense pressure, Amanda made statements that would nearly cost her life. She falsely accused Patrick Lumumba, her boss at a local bar, of killing Meredith. She claimed to have been in the cottage during the murder, covering her ears while Patrick attacked her roommate. It was a confession that Amanda would immediately recant, claiming it was coerced. But the damage was done. She was arrested, along with Raphael, whose story about their activities that night had also changed under questioning. The confession would haunt Amanda throughout her legal ordeal. To prosecutors, it was evidence of her guilt. To her defense team, it was proof of police misconduct. To the media, it was sensational content that sold newspapers and generated clicks. But there was one crucial detail that the initial investigation missed, one that would eventually expose the truth. None of Amanda's DNA was found in Meredith's bedroom where the murder took place. While Amanda Knox and Raphael Salcedo sat in prison awaiting trial, investigators were building a case against the actual killer, a case that should have exonerated Amanda from the beginning. Rudy Gide, a 20-year-old immigrant from the Ivory Coast, had left his fingerprints and DNA throughout Meredith's bedroom and on her body. His footprints were found in her blood. His DNA was under her fingernails. The evidence against him was overwhelming and undeniable. Gide had a history of break-ins and had been caught with stolen goods. He had been accused of pulling a knife on another man just weeks before Meredith's murder. When police identified him as a suspect, he fled to Germany, where he was eventually arrested. Under questioning, Gide initially denied involvement, then claimed he had been in the bathroom when he heard Meredith scream. He said he tried to help her but couldn't save her. His story changed multiple times, but one thing remained consistent. He claimed Amanda Knox was not involved in the murder. Gide was tried separately under Italy's fast-track procedure. In 2008, he was convicted and sentenced to 30 years in prison, later reduced to 16 years on appeal. The evidence against him was so compelling that even prosecutors acknowledged he was the primary perpetrator. So why wasn't that the end of the story? Why didn't Amanda Knox walk free when the real killer was caught? The answer reveals the dark heart of this case. Because Amanda Knox had become too valuable as a media commodity and prosecutorial trophy to let facts get in the way. At the center of Amanda Knox's legal nightmare was Giuliano Magnini, the prosecutor who built his career on sensational cases and conspiracy theories. Magnini didn't just want to convict Rudy Gide, he wanted to prove that the murder was part of a larger conspiracy involving Amanda Knox and Raphael Salcedo. Magnini's theory was as salacious as it was implausible. He claimed the murder was the result of a drug-fueled sex game gone wrong. He alleged that Amanda, Raphael, and Rudy had tried to force Meredith into group sex, and when she refused, they killed her. There was no evidence to support this theory. Amanda and Rudy barely knew each other. There was no history of sexual deviance among any of the accused. The physical evidence contradicted the prosecution's timeline and scenario. But Magnini persisted, perhaps because he understood something that would define this entire case. The truth mattered less than the story people wanted to believe. The prosecutor painted Amanda as a sexually promiscuous American who corrupted innocent Italian men. He called her Foxy Knoxy, referencing a childhood nickname and transforming it into something sinister. He claimed her behavior after the murder, the kissing, the cartwheels she did at the police station to stretch her back, proved her guilt. It was character assassination disguised as criminal prosecution, and the Italian media ate it up. What happened to Amanda Knox cannot be separated from what happened in the media. From the moment her arrest was announced, she became the perfect storm of tabloid sensationalism, a pretty American girl accused of a brutal murder in romantic Italy. The British tabloids, in particular, were merciless. They dubbed her Foxy Knoxy and painted her as a sex-crazed killer who had seduced two men into murder. Italian media followed suit, focusing not on evidence but on Amanda's appearance, her behavior, and salacious details about her personal life. The coverage was deeply gendered and culturally biased. Amanda's sexual history was dissected in ways that would never happen to a male defendant. Her confidence was interpreted as arrogance. Her tears were dismissed as manipulation. Her attempts to maintain hope were seen as callousness. Meanwhile, Raphael Salcedo, facing the same charges based on the same evidence, received a fraction of the media attention. The story wasn't about him, it was about the American girl who had supposedly corrupted him. This media narrative didn't just sell newspapers, it poisoned the jury pool and created international pressure for conviction. By the time Amanda's trial began, she wasn't just fighting the prosecutor's case, she was fighting a global perception that she was guilty. Amanda Knox's legal journey became an 8-year odyssey through the Italian court system, with verdicts that flip-flopped between guilty and innocent with dizzying frequency. First trial, 2009. In December 2009, Amanda and Raphael were convicted of Meredith's murder and sentenced to 26 and 25 years in prison respectively. The conviction was based largely on circumstantial evidence, the disputed confession, and character assassination. The DNA evidence that was supposed to link Amanda to the crime was later shown to be contaminated and unreliable. First appeal, 2011. In October 2011, after spending 4 years in prison, Amanda and Raphael were acquitted on appeal. Independent experts had reviewed the DNA evidence and found it worthless. The appellate court found that there was no credible evidence linking Amanda to the murder. Amanda's reaction to the acquittal, breaking down in sobs of relief, was broadcast worldwide. After 4 years of imprisonment for a crime she didn't commit, she was finally free. Supreme Court Review, 2013. In March 2013, Italy's highest court overturned the acquittal and ordered a new trial. The court didn't find Amanda guilty, it simply ruled that the appellate court hadn't adequately addressed all the evidence. Retrial, 2014. In January 2014, Amanda and Raphael were convicted again, this time in absentia. Amanda, who had returned to the United States after her acquittal, was sentenced to 28.5 years in prison. The verdict seemed to end any hope of final vindication. Final appeal, 2015. On March 27, 2015, Italy's highest court finally and definitively exonerated Amanda Knox and Raphael Sollecito. The court didn't just overturn their convictions, it ruled that there was insufficient evidence that they had committed any crime. After 8 years, multiple trials, and international controversy, Amanda Knox was finally and completely free. Amanda Knox returned to the United States in 2011 as one of the most famous women in the world, but fame born from tragedy and injustice is a burden, not a blessing. She had lost 4 years of her life to an Italian prison, her reputation to global media, and her privacy forever. The case had cost her family hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. It had subjected them all to death threats, harassment, and constant scrutiny. Amanda herself struggled with depression, anxiety, and the trauma of wrongful imprisonment. But perhaps most painfully, Amanda found that her exoneration didn't end the controversy. Polls showed that many people still believed she was guilty despite the Italian Supreme Court's definitive ruling. The media narrative had been so powerful, so pervasive, that facts couldn't completely overcome it. In 2024, Amanda faced one final legal hurdle when an Italian court upheld her conviction for slander, the false accusation of Patrick Lumumba that she had made during her coerced interrogation. While she faced no additional punishment, the conviction served as a permanent reminder of the nightmare she had endured. In focusing on Amanda Knox's ordeal, it's crucial not to lose sight of the case's true victim, Meredith Kercher. She was a 21-year-old woman with dreams, ambitions, and a family who loved her. Her murder was a tragedy that should never be overshadowed by the media circus that followed. Meredith's family maintained dignity throughout the legal proceedings, avoiding the spotlight that consumed Amanda. They wanted justice for their daughter, not sensationalism. In many ways, they were secondary victims of a case that became more about Amanda Knox than about Meredith Kercher. Rudy Gide, the actual killer, served 13 years in prison before being released in 2021. His name is barely remembered, while Amanda Knox remains a global figure. This disparity reveals something disturbing about how society processes criminal cases. We're more fascinated by the story than by justice. The Amanda Knox case serves as a cautionary tale about multiple failures in the pursuit of justice. Prosecutorial misconduct. Giuliano Mignini built a case on theory rather than evidence, pursuing a narrative that fit his preconceptions rather than the facts. Media responsibility. The sensationalized coverage of the case prioritized entertainment over truth, creating a narrative that was nearly impossible to overcome. Coercive interrogation. Amanda's false confession highlights the dangers of interrogating suspects without legal representation, particularly young people under extreme stress. Cultural bias. The case revealed deep-seated prejudices about nationality, gender, and sexuality that influenced how evidence was interpreted and presented. The power of perception. Once the media narrative was established, facts became secondary to the story people wanted to believe. Today, Amanda Knox advocates for criminal justice reform and wrongful conviction awareness. She has written books, appeared in documentaries, and shared her story to prevent others from experiencing what she endured. Her case remains one of the most studied examples of wrongful conviction in the modern era. It's taught in law schools as an example of how criminal cases can go wrong. It's analyzed by media scholars as an example of irresponsible journalism. It's studied by psychologists as an example of how false confessions can be coerced. But for Amanda Knox herself, it's simply the story of how she survived 8 years of hell and emerged with her sanity and spirit intact. The kiss that started this nightmare, that moment of human comfort in the face of tragedy that was twisted into evidence of guilt, serves as a perfect metaphor for Amanda's entire experience. Sometimes, the most innocent actions can be transformed into weapons when viewed through the lens of prejudice and sensationalism. Amanda Knox was never the angel face, or the devil in disguise, that the media portrayed. She was something far more dangerous to a narrative-driven culture. She was simply human. And in a case that demanded monsters and villains, being human was nearly enough to cost her everything. The real question this case asks isn't about Amanda Knox's guilt or innocence. That was definitively answered in 2015. The real question is about us. How do we consume true crime? How do we separate entertainment from justice? How do we ensure that the Amanda Knoxes of the world get fair treatment instead of sensational coverage? Because somewhere out there, right now, another innocent person is sitting in an interrogation room. Another prosecutor is building a case on theory rather than evidence. Another media circus is forming around another human being whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the only thing standing between them and Amanda Knox's fate is our commitment to demanding better from our prosecutors, our media, and ourselves. The truth, as Amanda Knox learned, is often the first casualty when justice becomes entertainment. Her story isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a call to action.